So it's just after midday, so very good afternoon to you all, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the latest in our series of webinars, which we've been producing on a Tuesday and a Friday now at midday for many weeks. And it seems to be getting a very positive response. Many of you are regulars, so you know the spiel, but there are some new phases in this afternoon. So I will go through the details again for those people in particular. But you'll recall that these webinars are provided by 6 organisations now, together to give you, in the first instance, it was information surrounding COVID-19, but now we've widened that to look at other important subjects within the construction sector. It's brought to you by Constructing Excellence in the Southwest, the Midlands, the North East and Wales, and the Housing Forum, and also the Structural Timber Association. And I'm delighted that our speaker today is from the Structural Timber Association, Steward Dalgarno, very well known and respected figure within not only the timber sector, but in the wider construction industry. Here today to talk about industrialisation in the housing market. So as we come out of COVID-19, as we take this roadmap to recovery, there is no doubt that housing is front and centre when it comes to priorities for UK construction. We need to still build these 300,000 homes a year, and we're not going to achieve that figure if we just do things the way we always used to. So there's a very interesting project underway, which Stewart is one of the leading exponents. So we're delighted that he's able to give of his time today to come and share with us the knowledge to date in this industrialisation of housing project. So thank you for that, Stewart. Also, thank you to John and Howard, who have been expertly hosting our events over the last 2 or 3 months. And I'm going to hand now to Howard, who is just going to give us the house rules before we start. Thank you, Howard.
Good morning to everyone. As far as people who have not been on Zoom before, I'll just quickly run through the various things that need to of interest to you. First is the chat button. Please use this and please use it now, because what you can do is you can share who you are, where you're from, and even what you're looking for to get out of today. That would be really useful and interesting for all of us to read. The next thing is Stuart's going to give his presentation and take his questions afterwards. So if you'd like to ask questions, please do so by using the Q&A menu that you will see. If you'd like to own your question, that would be quite interesting for us all, because what I can do is bring you in live to answer your question, and hopefully might end up with a little bit more discussion. Lastly, there is on your menu a hands up button. If you'd like to ask a question when we get later on, please raise your hand and I can easily bring you in. Now, in terms of introduction, I'm now going to hand over to Stewart. He'll give a little brief introduction about himself, and let's enjoy. Thank you very much, Stewart. Over to you.
Thank you very much, guys. That's good. Thank you for the introduction. For those who don't know me, my name's Steward Dalgarno. I am the Director of Product Development at Stewart Milne Group, but I'm also the Project Director for the AIMCH Consortium. I'm going to talk about our project today. It's an innovation project around about housing industrialisation. It's supported through Innovate UK and the industrial strategy through the Transforming Construction call, the first round funded projects. It focuses on housing in particular, and it's one of the biggest, shall I say, flagship housing projects that Innovate UK are looking to fund in terms of driving forward a more industrialised approach to housing delivery. So I'm going to share with you some slides today. They'll be available for you to download through the various channels. We are working on a showreel video that will be available on the website in about a week's time, which gives you bang up to date progress, including some video footage of what's been completed so far, and a little bit more work around about the manufacturing aspects of the project. So we'll give you a link after this so you can follow those things up, and it'll give you bang up to date on where we are and probably give you a bit more visual updates of things as well. So moving forward, I'm going to share my screen, take up the slides. Happy to take questions at the end or through the Q&A aspects as well. So hopefully everyone can see that. Andrew, is that correct? Can you see yours?
I can see that perfectly, Stuart. Howard here. So thanks very much. Carry on.
Thanks, Howard. So AIMCH stands for Advanced Industrialized Methods for Construction of Homes. Nice little acronym. It's really about mainstreaming the use of modern methods of construction, with a focus on panelized systems through digital working, advanced manufacturing, lean construction, as being the core aspects of the project. Right.
Lock up
On the screen. There we go. So the project is 6.2 million in total. It's a 3-year project over 36 months or 12 quarters. We've secured £4 million of investment from Innovate UK to help us do quite a challenging project that otherwise the partners would probably not engage with. So it allows us to goes beyond normal business practices in terms of the risk and reward, I suppose, associated with the project. There's 4 key industry partners involved. There's ourselves, Stewart Group, who are a timber frame manufacturer of off-site panelised systems and a house builder in their own right. We've got the UK's largest private house builder, Barratt Homes. We've got the UK's largest affordable housing provider with L&Q. And we've got an SME, which is Foster Group. They're a roofing contractor who specialise in roof tiling and renewable systems, predominantly in Scotland, but looking to grow their business beyond Scotland. We've got 2 research partners involved, Manufacturing Technology Centre, who've been helping with a lot of the research and innovation around about the monitoring of the homes that we're building, and also inputting into the manufacturing aspects of the project as well, which I'll cover in a bit more detail. And the Construction Scotland Innovation Centre, who largely have provided support in terms of productivity studies through their university networks in Scotland, and also is our dissemination partner. There are a website, aimch.co.uk, in the bottom there. It's a useful place. We share all our content and the outputs on that. So in due course, you should be able to access the video link that I described earlier on, and you'll be able to download various outputs from the project as we start to disseminate some of the learning. Our ambition is to deliver modern methods of construction, MMC, using panelised offsite systems. And we're really looking at the mainstreaming of panelised offsite systems. We appreciate there's a large variety of different offsite systems out there, including modular systems, pod systems, and various levels of panelised systems, from very advanced systems to less advanced systems. But our focus has very much been on the mainstream uptake and the commercialisation of panelised systems, which will derive essentially a cost-neutral outcome, so the same price point as brick and block, but also bring with it higher quality, faster homes to produce, safer, more robust and more productive than conventional masonry methods. That is our ambition in the project. We see that being done across essentially 4 key areas through the use of digital working and standardisation, and I'll talk more detail on that, through a more integrated offsite manufacturing supply chain and process, including the utilisation of more advanced manufacturing systems to drive costs of production down, and through more effective assembly processes on site through the adoption of lean techniques, driven through benchmarking, through productivity studies, and driving out the requirement to use less labour on site, which ultimately will provide a suite of homes which are suitable for both the affordable market and the private residential market. We see this as essentially an innovation project, looking at current MMC systems that are in the marketplace. We're obviously looking at timber panelized systems, we're looking at concrete systems and steel systems. We see that being driven forward through more integrated digital working and automation, and monitoring of existing masonry methods and open panel timber frame methods as our benchmark, and then moving that to a more mainstream system where we're scaling up in terms of the output of the project over the next 2 years, heading into year 5. And then longer term, looking at the development of more advanced systems where we may want to include things such as services, dry lining, external cladding, and maybe look at hybrid systems like a pod and panel system where we can drop in bathroom pods, services pods, for example, as part of a very efficient fabric solution. So our approach to this is sort of gradual incremental change as opposed to more transformational, but the scale and the magnitude of change is quite impressive. We've got 35,000 homes within the direct control of the consortium, so it's about 15% of the market, and we feel that through dissemination and a more gradual uptake at MMC, other mainstream providers in both affordable and the private sector will move in a similar journey. So the tangible benefits are very much driven through cost. MMC has always been mooted as being more expensive, and some systems are very close to being commercially competitive with masonry systems. So really one of the challenges is to ensure we hit a price point that mainstreams the use of panelized MMC systems, such as timber-based systems and or concrete systems. Halving the time to build a house, improving our quality, and increasing the amount of pre-manufactured value, PMV, so there's more done in the factory and less done on the site. Our first thing we've done is essentially looked at monitoring. So we need data to benchmark the future systems versus the current systems in today's world. So we've undertaken research through the Dundee University of previous monitoring studies that have been done in the UK and overseas to see what is the best type of metrics and monitoring tools to use to compare existing methods, open panel timber frame, and then the new methods will be prototyping in the project. That was done about 6 months ago, and we've now got essentially a suite of productivity metrics that we're now measuring on live developments. The data is really important because that gives us a clear benchmark to be able to reference the benefits of the new systems we're going to be looking at. We've already completed one site. It's the Barratt Homes development site at Peterspear in Warrington in partnership with Homes England. A number of prototype plots have been built there, as well as mainstream open panel timber frame plots. All of these have been monitored. Barratt's are also going to be monitoring traditional brick and block homes that we'll be building across a number of developments, and we'll collect data for both these methods so we can do the benchmarking studies. There's 2 types of monitoring we've used. One is essentially time and motion studies using the sort of conventional established caliber methods, which is essentially having a full-time researcher on site taking readings every 50 minutes across various different metrics that we're recording, including labour productivity, process waste, material waste, efficiency downtime, efficiency uptime. That can be quite an expensive way. One of the things that we're looking to develop and could be a wider project outcome is the use of wearable Bluetooth tracking. So MTC have introduced a new technology where we're monitoring the workers on the site through Bluetooth tracking, and they wear high vises with tracking devices, and we're able to monitor their activity on the site, and we know their activity rates and such. We can monitor those remotely. It's a less expensive system, but relatively new and quite risky, hence why we've also got the backup of having the Calibre data collection system in place going forward. So one of the potential exploitable outcomes from the project is the the deployment of that new Bluetooth stacking technologies that other developers could use in the future. We've also deployed and built some homes. So our first series of closed panel timber frame homes have been built and completed. The image on the left gives you an idea of the home that was constructed. We've got a range of detached, semi, 2.5 story and attached homes. The image on the left is one of the plots. We used a closed panel system, so closed, insulated, windows pre-fitted, pre-finished floor cassettes, pre-finished party wall system, scaffoldless erect system, so the whole house was built without scaffolding. We did a ground erect roof system, which was tiled at the ground level with the rainwater goods, fascia and soffit in place, and the whole roof module lifted and dropped in just under 15 minutes, and then secured. So that house from start to finish took just under 7 hours to complete, and is essentially secure, wind and watertight, stairs fitted, finished floor in place, service cavities already preformed, roof tiled and battened, and allows the internal working to start and external brickwork to start. And takes the scaffolding off the critical path, such that you can actually erect the timber structure and put the roof on in one go. Appreciate that's a prototype, so we're now looking at the different sort of house typologies, including mid terraces and end terraces, etc., and the site logistics around about the use of that sort of roof system in there. But quite an impressive starter. We've got a similar plots being developed for L&Q site, Milton Keynes, which will be coming forward in the next couple of months. So as I said, we've focused on panelized systems. We are looking at timber initially. We are engaged with looking at concrete systems as well. Later in the project, we will be doing a supplier sand pit. That is essentially a request for other systems out there to come forward and showcase their technologies that could be scalable into the project as part of the sort of next 2 years of the project they still have to do. So initially we're going with the systems that we kind of are near to market but not mainstream. So some of the images there are the different systems we've been using, and also a list of the different sort of technologies that we can do. With further plots to be done, so L&Q have got a development at Milton Keynes. Again, those plots have been identified. They are doing similar monitoring for their units. It's a slightly different house type with different requirements from a space standards and cost perspective, due to the whole life cost issues that are probably more prevalent in the affordable market than it would be in the private market. We've also been doing trials with Foster Group, who are looking at an innovative roof tiling system, including the fitting of renewable systems, where they're looking to essentially pre-cut components that can be then fitted on site, so reducing the dependency on site tiling systems. And I'll talk about that later on. So that sort of fits well with the sort of more integrated system that you can see if we're tiling roofs before they're completed. Linked to this is essentially the manufacturing. So obviously a more integrated supply chain through AIMCH. So Stewart Milne supply product to both Barratt's and L&Q, as do other off-site providers in the marketplace. And one of the things that we've been looking to do with this project is talk about scaling up these systems. So if you were to insulate walls, fit windows, etc., then you need a more developed system to be able to do it in a factory. So we are definitely looking at more automation in the factory and use of new technologies. So we're definitely looking at robotics. We've been working with our technology providers and MTC to develop robotic configurations for various different work processes, including the fitting of sheathing boards on the frames, including the filling insulation into the frames with different ranges of insulation, and also the factory fixing of windows with robots, and a more integrated supply chain to effectively feed components to the robot to fit into the apertures on the line. Just to give you a bit of an idea of the output, to do that, if we were to fit a window into every wall panel that's produced currently in our systems, we would require to fit a window every 2.5 minutes on a production line of any configuration and size. So we've been looking at standardization to see what is the most effective sort of, supply chain and window dimensions to coordinate across the various developers, L&Q, Barratt's, and of course Stewart Mill Homes. So a bit like your car wheels in the automotive centre marketplace, they have an integrated supply chain that supply wheels of a certain dimension that's pretty standardised that go into every car in the UK, 5 bolts and 1 lock and nut, for example, but have different fenestrations in the wheels, but like windows, different fenestrations. So you can see the sort of automotive thinking and the advanced sort of smart manufacturing coming through. Leading to automation obviously reduces the amount of labour dependency, so manual labour on a production line. Equally getting skilled labour to work in a factory is as challenging as it is on a building site. But what we are doing here is creating world-leading manufacturing principles. There is no current automated robotics lines in the UK, and there is only one that exists in the world. And we recently visited it just to get some initial awareness of what that would look like in a robotic factory of the future. Linked to that is the deployment of these technologies. So obviously the scaling up to suit different factories, so future factories. So we've been developing a mathematical model and simulation tool that sort of works on a sort of hub and spoke type facility, where we can have manufacturing centres closer to the building sites that are proportionate to the location of those developments, with the right technology put in there. And we can create 3D simulations and assess those factories before we, blueprints, before we actually commit the investment. So quite often in the world at AIMCH, a lot of people invest to develop factories without really knowing if the factory is capable of delivering what it needs to do. And some people come good, but most people probably come a cropper through that. So as you'd expect with any car manufacturing investment, they use this technology to simulate the future factories. So pretty much building a factory in a virtual reality before you actually commit to that investment. So that fits with the investment plans for the partners within the consortium, and provides essentially a mechanism where other MMC suppliers in the future could adopt a similar approach to give confidence to commit to investments before they actually are built. Linked to that is really the upstream integration piece. So this sort of feeds in with the digitization piece. So we're looking at the integration of BIM and the ERP systems. For those who don't know what an ERP system is, it's an enterprise resource planning system that almost acts as the sort of golden link that underpins all of the integration of any digital system in a business. So links with your customer relations modules, your finance modules, your smart manufacturing, your commercial modules, and ultimately your supply chain modules as well. So getting product in a very simple way to the building site. And we found that in the world of offsite production, it's quite a complicated business model, offsite manufacturing. And there's no go-to standard ERP system out there that would work, because we're quite specialised in terms of manufacturing. We're also an installer quite often, so we're effectively a subcontractor. The business operates in a project environment, so it's unlike other manufacturing environments, which tends to make lots of the same thing. We tend to make lots of something totally different and bespoke to every project that's built, typically on a building site. So we've been essentially creating a mechanism where we can schedule out the requirements and specify an ERP system that can then integrate with BIM and the use of 3D technologies that can then feed the data direct into the robotic work centres, and therefore produce volume and scale and at a lower price point. Linked to that is the housing design, so working with the developers and looking to see how we can standardise housing designs. Nothing really new here, but a lot of people have tried to do this in the past. So we've undertaken variability studies across the Stewart Mill house range, the Barrett house ranges, and the L&Q house ranges. And what that's shown is actually there's a significant amount of variability across even the AIMCH developer partners. And that gives us an opportunity to standardise. So we've been looking at what are the elements we need to standardise. And to do that, we've created essentially a suite of product families. So looking at the shell of the building in terms of creating standardised wall heights, floor heights, dimensions, sizes that are optimised to suit the factory production systems. Almost like a kit of parts, looking at a suite of apertures that can accommodate all the various different house styles that the developers produce. Looking at things like stairs, looking at things like bathrooms and wet rooms, looking at en suites as well, looking at services. So we can maybe have a prefabricated service cupboard of the future, maybe bathroom pods of the future that can be dropped in, that can be optimized and produced at scale. We did a variability study just to give you some highlights from a Stewart Mill point of view. 31 standard house types currently have 95 different bathroom configurations to eventually design those units. That's how it's been. That's how most developers have maybe evolved over the years. But there is an opportunity to maybe rationalise that. And if we were to then engage with a more integrated supply chain with a pod producer of the future, then what appeals to them is some form of standardisation. And if we can standardise those and drop them into the houses of the future that we want, then there's a good chance we can potentially take further costs out of the construction process with a potential hybrid pod and panel type approach. So some images here of the sort of standardisation. Some of this you've seen before. There's a lot of detail behind this. It's not as straightforward as you might think. To get the right sizes, to look at the floor levels, to look at the detailing around about the walls, to think about the weatherproofing, to think about the sequencing, what can be prefabricated, what can't be prefabricated, how do you handle the customization piece for customers in the future, particularly in the private market where they're picking choices in terms of colours of tiles, etc. And essentially starting sort of designing a new house range. So working with these building blocks and working out, so to speak, as opposed to essentially working from a footprint driven by floor area and then trying to sort of shoehorn in the various different spaces to suit the areas. So this feeds into our future 3D housing models. So we will be preparing a suite of AIMCH 3D housing models of the future, which are optimized to suit these product families. And the last thing you see there is a DFMA guide, so design for manufacture and assembly. So looking at preparing a DFMA guide for panelized MMC systems where the optimum heights, walls, thicknesses, dimensions, spans, etc. And those three things can flow into a standardized house range. Beauty of the image where we've done the prototypes is, essentially still cladding it with masonry. So you have the benefits of a conventional cavity and masonry wall. You still need a brickie on the site. We reckon we can build houses in around about 10 weeks, including foundations in there as well. But you still have the benefits of that external masonry facade, so you can have the different fenestrations to suit the local market. You've got the street scene appeal, so you're creating beautiful homes at the same time, and they're not coming out with cladding systems that maybe have concerns in the future about longevity and maybe look less appealing to the eye than a conventional masonry clad home using different materials such as stone, brick, block and render solutions. So the last few slides then, just we've also added in to the project an evaluation of embodied carbon and whole life costs. So we've commissioned research to look at the embodied carbon benefits of MMC panelized systems versus traditional methods. So looking at different material types, including timber, steel and concrete, and their carbon footprint compared to traditional methods. We think that will be a big thing going forward as part of the climate change agenda, and we need to understand the use of materials and the impact that's got on the climate upstream and downstream of completed homes. So we're doing the embodied carbon modelling for homes and the systems used. And we've also commissioned research on the whole life cost of MMC. So again, looking at the MMC benefits, hopefully of panelised systems compared to traditional methods over a 20, 40 and 60-year lifespan. That'll be more, it's not much research and data around about that currently. There's a lot of views and opinions about the benefits, or maybe not the benefits of that. So the research will look to validate what are the issues and what are the benefits associated with whole life costs of MMC, so that we understand that those who value whole life cost and not lowest capital cost have both views available to them. So whether you're an affordable provider who maybe values those whole life cost benefits compared to maybe a private developer who's maybe looking at more of a lower bill cost starting position. We're also looking at augmented reality. So our partner Foster's are developing an innovative roof tiling system, and that's underway. And they're working with MTC. They've got a test rig being built in the facilities at MTC in Coventry, where they'll be doing some initial proof of concept work within the research facilities there. That's linked to essentially the digitisation of the roof shape. So once a roof's built, so to speak, taking a very digital record of the dimensions of that roof to feed into a process which will allow them to then develop their roof tiling system, avoiding the use of cutting on the building site and things like silica dust that comes with that, reducing the cost of labour on site by circa 30%. And then linking that through to sort of the augmented reality helmets, so you can actually then have a pattern of how to lay the roof tiling systems onto the roof, and doing away with paper essentially, and looking at the sort of intelligent headset technology, a bit like the HoloLens technology, to place that materials onto that roof template. And some of that learning could also flow into other work centres within the AIMCH consortium, so where that type of technology would be useful. All of this is linked to commercial viability, so the key outcome is obviously a cost neutral price point. So from that we are modelling all of our costs back to effectively the private market and the affordable market. We looked at regional variances. We know the cost of masonry, we know the cost of open panel timber frame, closed panel timber frame, and other MMC panelised systems, and we'll be able to look at where we think the price point can get to as we introduce some of the learnings from the project, as we start to scale up, as we introduce the robotics, as we introduce the standardisation, as we start to introduce some of the productivity benefits on the site. Our goal is essentially to achieve the same, if not less, cost than masonry built. So wider industry engagement. Yes, this is an example today where we're sharing some of the outputs and thoughts about the project. As I say, we've got a website, aimch.co.uk, and most of our information will be put up there over time. The project is 15 months old now. We've had a 3 months delay because of the COVID thing. So some of the work packages have slowed, but everything's coming back now, and we expect to be bang up and fully up and running again within the next couple of weeks on most of the work packages, and we'll continue to share that. We are going to be taking part in the Future of Building Week, which is part of Innovate UK's sort of showcase for a celebration of the 2-year anniversary of the industrial strategy and the transforming construction calls, and we'll be featuring some of the showreel information that you can see in a week's time when you download that from the website. So some of the people we've engaged with, we have a stakeholder group that sits alongside the main steering group of the project. So that's chaired by Simon Dudley, the chairman of Homes England, who are very interested in the outputs. We've got a number of these organisations that are on the screen involved. So we meet every sort of 6 months to share progress, some of the challenges we're experiencing, some of the maybe concerns, but also some of the benefits and some of the exploitable outcomes. So we take people with us on the journey. Some people are more proactively inclined to support us, some are maybe less so for various reasons, but it's good if we're all working together to share that learning, and we can use this forum as a means to disseminate to the wider sector as well. Homes England are particularly interested in the project and aligning the recent announcement that they are going to be monitoring their own MMC projects that they've commissioned through, I believe it's Faithful and Gould. So again, a lot of the research and the monitoring activity and the monitoring tools that we are using would help them ensure that they are monitoring the right thing, and we've got a database that shares the learning from both the work that they're about to undertake and the work we've undertaken and will continue to undertake for the next 2 years. So there's an example of sort of collaboration and working together to share that sort of data sets around about MMC productivity. So thank you very much for listening to me. As I say, AIMCH is a flagship industrialisation project. It covers many aspects through the digital manufacturing and sort of site journey. It's not all about MMC and offsite systems. It's just one part of a bigger jigsaw that needs to come together to really transform how we build homes. So thank you for listening, and I'm happy to take a few questions. I'll hand back to yourself, Howard.
Stewart,
Okay.
Thank you for that. Thank you so much. We've got a number of questions. Howard, are you going to take us through those?
I'm very happy to.
Okay.
I've got one, Stuart, that has come through the chat, and I think someone else is going to ask one through the chat. So the first question is, who are you using to design your virtual factories?
So we've been working with the Manufacturing Technology Centre for that. They are very specialist in this area, and they've looked at creating the mathematical modelling that goes into the 2D simulation and then the 3D simulation. They do this for automotive and other manufacturing industries, and they're deploying that sort of thinking into that. So that's who's doing it. The outcome from the project is essentially a modelling tool that could be available for other producers in the future who are considering these things. And it's not all about big automated factories. The tool is fit also for manual pop-up factories, which is another area we're looking at. So Manufacturing Technology Centre, the home of British manufacturing really, and obviously linked in nicely with the Construction Innovation Hub.
Okay, thank you. I've got a question here from Philip Perlman. How do you deal with funding institutions who refuse to grant mortgages on timber framed buildings?
Well, I wasn't sure that you can't get mortgages. Certainly as a builder, Stuart Milne, we've been in Scotland, 85% of all homes are timber frame. We've been building homes using timber frame for 45 years, and we've always been able to get mortgages and funding for that. We think that will continue going forward for sure. Some of the noise around about maybe larger buildings to do with apartments, we understand there's maybe more we can do to ensure that funding is there, but on the whole, through STA and the likes of this project here, where we've got the Association of British Insurers involved in this, we've got the RICS involved with this, we've got NHBC involved with this, all of which like what they're saying. They actually like using established systems as a first route into the market, and they're very favourable to funding the type of solutions. We are not going to develop systems that can't get mortgages, it can't get funding. You know, that's not what L&Q, Barrett or Stewart Milne would want. So we're very at the point of using established systems and incremental improvements over time, as opposed to more novel big bang change systems that maybe have more challenges to get finance.
Stewart, may I just add that, like you, you know, within the STA generally, there isn't a general problem in terms of what you're suggesting. However, we do have, as an associate member, a company called AJ Gallagher. And if anyone's got any queries or issues in the insurance market, we tend to point them in the direction of a gentleman by the name of Marcus Saunders. who, generally speaking, comes up with a solution. So if you'd like to go to the STA website, there are details on there. Thank you.
Okay, I've got another question here, Stuart, from Bill Minner. Bill is from Styco. Now he says, hi, Stuart, when you get to the, and he puts in parentheses, sand pit, close parentheses, stage, would there be interest in using natural stroke wood fibre insulation as an option?
Well, the sand pits definitely will be that vehicle. They have been delayed because of the COVID thing at the moment. So later on this year, we're going to have an open sand pit, which is a call to anybody who's got any innovation to do with insulation or feel that they've got a component or a system or a solution that could fit with the AIMCH agenda. We did a similar thing many years ago with AIMC4, and we've got a number of technologies came forward, some of which were commercialised through that project, like wastewater heat recovery, which is now quite a common technology used in just about every house that's built in the UK. Back in the day, about 8 years ago, that was pretty much a new technology. So to answer Bill, yes. Can I say that we'd be naturally using materials? I think we'll always be commercially focused, and we'll also make sure that we can factory fit these types of installations in volume. So we're certainly looking at blown technology through robotic blowing systems to insulate panels very quickly, because we can't quite have slow technologies that slows us down and everything else. So if you imagine that it's not just the component, but also about the systems that surround it, then everything's up for grabs at the moment. Can't say yay or nay to these things, but if we hit the right price point and we can produce in volume through a manufactured system, then we should be considering every technology that's there.
Okay, thank you very much. I've got it always interests me, a couple of questions here about abbreviations. The first one is, what does ERP stand for?
Yeah, I see that one, and PMV. So yeah, we're great at using acronyms in the world of construction. So ERP stands for Enterprise Resource Planning. It's pretty much a business system that most manufacturing and/or companies would use in a business environment. It links all of the processes through your business effectively. It's a backbone of what people use in manufacturing and/or into construction. People look at BIM as a sort of magic bullet for the industry, and it's got part of the solution. But unless it links with your ERP system, unless that then links with your manufacturing system, if that doesn't link with your supply chain systems, and it doesn't link with your customers' requirements of the future, your CRM sort of module, customer relations management, then you don't have an integrated system. So ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning. PMV is another acronym for pre-manufactured value. It's something the government uses. It was developed through CAS Consultancy and Mark Farmer as an evaluation of how much product is done in the factory and how much is done on the building site. So with the house I sort of demonstrated there, the walls, the windows, the insulation fitted, the tiles done, etc. Some of the plasterboard was fitted where we've got fire protection. You're doing more in the factory, less on the building site. So the PMV value increases over time is what AIMCH is looking to achieve. You've got some systems like modular homes, which might be as much as 80–85% PMV value done in the factory, but as a different technology for low-rise residential housing than panelized systems.
Okay, fine. Thanks very much. I've got a couple of questions here from Angel Morales Aguilla. What design guidelines are you looking at when working on standardization? And second part of that is, who is championing for design quality and good placemaking?
Yeah, so the guidelines on standardization is essentially, we've looked at, we've seen a lot of this through CAST and through Bride and Wood's work that have been done in the past, looking at product families and such like. We are developers ourselves, so we've been building homes, so we all each have our own placemaking agenda. We've got our own design standards excellence. Quite often they're linked to the HBF sort of standards that they use for placemaking. We've also linking that in with the new Building Better, Building Beautiful through Homes England. So everything we're looking to build will meet that requirements in terms of the quality of the place and the quality of materials in the place. That's why we're favouring brickwork cladding and masonry cladding systems as opposed to maybe other systems that are out there. The standardisation has really been driven through our own research on the basis that we've gone and done variability assessments of what we currently do as 3 individual developers and then map them together to look at the, if you imagine like a bell curve, any sort of statistical analysis, how much it could be standardised. And what you end up with is a very long spectrum of variability across the different product groupings that we've been looking at, and how much of that can be standardized. We're trying to get about 80% of what we need standardized, and then a bit of variability either side of that, if that makes sense. It's a typical 80-20 statistical analysis. It's the best way from a commercial point of view, but not to limit the quality of the home and the quality of the development produced by using standardized components. You know, the car industry have really nailed this. Everything's standardized in the car, but everything's also bespoke and tailored to that customer and to that, you know, site. So we'd be the same. It would be a standard platform, but every home would be configured and tailored to suit that development, so it looks amazing in a beautiful place.
Thank you. What tools are you using for carrying out, and here we got some more anachronisms, LCA and LCC? I
think LCA is life cycle assessment and life cycle costing, is it? So I'm not an expert on the tools here, but the company that we are going with is went through one of our research partners, Construction Scotland Innovation Centre. We've linked up with Dundee University and using the team there who have done a lot of productivity assessment and also do whole life costing assessments as well. So they've advised us on the type of tools to be used, and that work will kick off literally in the next couple of weeks, because we've had a bit of a delay in that work starting due to the COVID shutdown. But we've got a kick-off meeting early part of July, and we'll be looking at that tools going forward. We've mapped the 4 house types that we're going to look at, the different configurations, so 2 for affordable, 2 for private, various different sizes and fenestrations and styles. And we're also looking at the current compliance specification and future specifications. So, for example, what kind of renewable technologies would be deployed onto that house and that MMC house of the future, and what kind of whole life cost implications does that have on carbon compliance agenda, a near zero carbon home in the future. So I can't give you the specific answer to the tools we're using, but that's who we're using.
Question from Fred Carter. He's got sort of a few parts to it, but what percentage of new build housing units are currently A, open panel, B, closed panel, and C, volumetric compared to traditional? And what do you think are realistic target increase percentages over the next 5 years?
Well, that's quite a question there. If I was a betting man, I could probably have a go at that. I mean, if I put it into our as a consortium's use, so we kind of know that. So Barratt's use a lot of masonry builds, so I would think something like 80% of their homes will be masonry construction. 20% is open panel timber frame. You're probably aware that Barratt's have invested in a timber frame company, so are looking to scale up their output of timber frame as well as a near to market panelized system that they believe will go forward. Stewart Milne's 100% timber frame for us. L&Q have for the low-rise development, it tends to be timber frame, closed panel. They prefer a closed panel because it gives them a better whole life proposition in their view over an open panel. So all of their low-rise product that's non-London related is closed panel, and the rest of it is typically traditional methods in the main. There's a very, very low percentage of modular. We as a consortium and as individual companies have looked at this in the past, about whether this is the sort of magic bullet, and we're at the point where we're saying for some types of projects where typologies and densities dictate, modular is probably a way to go. But for low rise, typically 2- and 3-story housing, or 3- and 4-story very low rise flats, it doesn't really stack up, and the commercial gap is too far. People might not agree with that, and I'm sure a lot of people will have a view on that. But I think we need to look at all systems available. So our focus is on that panelised systems, which are very close to the price point of masonry for that low-rise housing, non-city centre, non-high density type locations, which represents something like, what, 87% of what we build in the UK.
Okay, we've got about 8 minutes left and 8 questions outstanding here, so I'll bash on. Question from Tab Binding. Looks like a really interesting project. Are you also looking at BPE, POE and operational carbon?
We're looking at, the simple answer is no, we're not looking at post-occupancy evaluation, we're not looking at that. We have done that in the past with AIMCH, which is a similar R&D project. We are considering whether we should look at monitoring and doing some kind of building performance assessments as built. We are looking at that on some of the prototype homes. We've not engaged on post-occupancy. Some of the homes are now built and sold, so the image I showed you earlier on is now occupied. So we've not engaged with the occupants of those homes to undertake occupancy evaluation studies. However, we know that the developers will be keeping in contact with them through their normal customer care and aftercare services. And I'm sure if there's any feedback or concerns, we'll get that through the usual 2-year sort of assessment processes that are going on.
Thanks. Question from Paul Morgan. No support from Wales or Northern Ireland. Are there any reasons?
Yeah, I mean, financial support came through Innovate UK through the industrial strategy. This project was evolved 18 months before the Transforming Construction call came out. So it's a significant project, a significant amount of work was put in beforehand. It's a strong partnerships. And, you know, we went through a competitive bidding process to get that money. So it wasn't, you know, it fell into our lap. We did an awful lot of work up front on that, direct with Innovate UK, because we knew the funding call was there. Otherwise, the partners would not have done this project. It's as simple as that. Wales are involved, and they're actually sitting on the stakeholder group, and we're actually due to speak at one of their MMC conferences shortly. Scotland obviously involved through Construction Scotland Group, and we've also got Head of Scottish Building Standards and the MMC person involved in the stakeholder group as well. So we do have contacts with Scotland, Wales and the central government at Westminster, not unfortunately with Northern Ireland.
Okay, another question here. Lots of house types. Do you do blocks of flats?
Yes, as answer to that. So on the Milton Keynes site for L&Q, we're building 3- and 4-story blocks of flats using similar panelised technologies. Some of the innovations are going into that, including the prefabricated single skin party wall. Also looking at fire protection, prefitted fire protection on a closed panel wall system. Prefitted wall windows are all fitted, and other things such as loading in plasterboard, reducing the amount of plasterboard content through factory fit in one layer, and reducing the amount of plasterboard by 50%. So again, looking at standard typologies for house designs in terms of blocks and stairwell configurations, and starting to look at future proofing in terms of any maybe regulatory changes that might come out in sort of apartments in the future post the approved document B. So both apartments and low-rise housing is being investigated.
Okay, I'm not sure of the question on this, but I'll read it out. Market size, cost and value, market culture, consumer preferences, skills, low investment in R&D, and initial factory setups. Any comments?
Well, I think that's from Gokai. I know Gokai pretty well. So yeah, it's a big question, Gokai. Market size, I mean, we're looking to increase the housing output in the UK by 120,000 homes over and above what we're currently doing. So you're not going to do that post-COVID and relying on traditional skills. So some form of industrialisation has to happen in the sector going forward. When we're looking at investment, you know, this is a risk and reward project, but it comes with a lot of risk. If we've got market failures, if these homes don't work, for example, then clearly we're living with legacy. So that's why we've got the investment through the Innovate UK, because the developers wouldn't normally take on a project of this scale and magnitude and profile without having that additional funding in place to do it. So that's why we've been able to do this innovation project. And then I think the last thing in terms of investment and risk, lots of MMC suppliers start and think they've got a magic bullet and they go burst literally within a year. They don't really understand it. It's a very difficult game to get into and survive through. It's quite good in a boom market, but in a difficult market, you need to be able to stress test it. That's exactly why we're doing the simulation. That's why we're exactly doing the modelling of the future factories. All of those factories are designed to be stress tested to the worst case scenario, not the best case scenario, which quite often people look at these things through rose-tinted glasses, as opposed to maybe some hard-nosed commercial people in our businesses who look at a survival sort of mode. So will it work in the worst case is kind of what we're looking at, and that's where the simulation allows us that confidence to invest.
Okay, I've got a bit of a sales pitch here. Stewart, are you determining the products to be used? There are a number of products in the market which I feel can be incorporated. One I'm dealing with is a unique insulation with a thermal value of 0.19 and a Class A2 fire rating. It can dramatically reduce the wall thickness. This is just one example. Who do I need to engage with?
Well, I think that's a perfect example of watch this space in terms of the AIMCH website. We will be having what we call a supplier sandpit. This is a system to essentially a call for supply chain to offer solutions to the partners to consider, and then go through a sort of a PQQ vetting analyst process. And if there's any real strongly promising technologies that come forward, then we will look to take those forward through the AIMCH and effectively come into the AIMCH potential procurement bubble going forward. So, perfect example of that. You've got something you think can work and it's viable and it's not just a magic wish, then you'll get a pretty honest answer from the partners.
Got a sandpit sort of question here. Will an email be sent re-involvement in the sandpits to members? It comes from Wayne Smith.
Yeah, I mean, we are developing this. So as I said, the back end of this calendar year, we will be hosting sandpits, and through our dissemination partner, the Innovation Centre, Construction Scotland Innovation Centre, and through our website, that will be the route to get that. I think we have been engaged with the Modern Built Network as well, forget the KTNs, because the KTNs have a sort of route for innovation through KTN networks. So again, we might buddy up with the KTN network to allow for suppliers and supply chain to feed in solutions that the partners can evaluate and either take forward or disregard, depending on how we assess them.
I've got a question here from Jeff Arnold. Is the DFMA approach too constrained by UK cut and paste house designs? For example, the roof solution with lifting girder trusses is clunky and costly.
Yeah, I get that. The DFMA guide is very much focused on panelised systems in the main. Yes, based on timber initially, but it can be suitable for steel or concrete or SIPS solutions, to be fair. The roof system we built there and a ground direct and tiled it on the ground, yeah, we've got two big girder trusses, so it's not the most cost effective way of doing that roof. But it was a proof of concept to say, can it be done, and can you build a kit without scaffolding safely and efficiently, which it can be done. The next challenge is the commercialisation of that. We're already looking at alternative ways of doing the roof lift and using collapsible beams. So as part of this, we've got a supplier who's already looking at collapsible roof beams, and we're engaged on designing out the girder trusses that you can see that we used initially as our solution, and coming up with an alternative way for our reusable lifting beams.
Okay, thank you very much. One last thing, it says, thanks, Stewart. We have a blown system that we'll be keen to put forward. That's from Ben Miller.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. I'm sure you use that. But yeah, we're definitely looking at blown technologies, whether it's cellulose, wood fibre, glass fibre. Glass fibre is the current favoured option. So anything that's cheaper or better than that, Bill, if you'll be interested.
Okay, Stuart. Thank you. That's all the questions we have. I'm now going to hand back to Andrew. So over to you,
Thank you
Andrew.
very much, Stuart. First of all, a big thank you from all the organisations. That was a fantastic hour spent with you. I have to say that we had such record figures sign up for this one that a number of people have texted me and emailed me during the last hour to say that we'd reached our maximum number and they couldn't get on. So we're going to be sending them a copy of the presentation. But I think that's an indication of the interest that there is in this project. So it may be, Stuart, if we may, we could ask you back in a few months' time to give us another update, because I think it would be most popular. So from everyone in all the organisations, the Housing Forum, CE and the Structural Timber Association, thank you so much for giving of your time, your knowledge and your expertise. Thank you also to Howard and John for hosting it. I know it's been busy day today, but that's great news. And I think it's an indication of the way going forward we're going to maybe get our training and our education in terms of online webinars. Talking of that, next Friday, 12 o'clock, we've got our next one. We can't have escaped the last week or so, the Black Lives Matters campaign, worldwide, global campaign, Black Lives Matters. And this Friday, we're looking at that in our own way, driving down to how it affects the construction industry. We've got Bola Abisogan as our guest speaker from Diverse City Surveyors, and he's going to be discussing ethnicity and diversity of thought in the UK construction industry. So if that is a topic which is important to you, and I'm sure it is, we'd like to see you on Friday at midday. But all it leaves me to do now is to thank Stuart, Howard and John once again, and wish you all a very good afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.